This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. This is Ray Skywalker early Sunday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After reviewing Buddha's Eightfold Path of Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? From the perspective, one moment if you please. Okay, let's go over here. Copy. And I'm going to hit enter. And paste. Okay, let us begin with a brief tale of two cousins. Oh, you know what? I forgot to set up my side monitor. Don't I feel silly? All right. There, so a tale of two cousins, the Buddha Gautama, also known as Shakyamuni, and his foolish cousin Devadatta. They are the very least archetypes of two very different worldviews. The worldview of the foolish cousin would be that of being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. I like to describe this as institutional Buddhism. The worldview of the Buddha is one of being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. I like to describe this as proto-Buddhism. So I'm going to answer the question, what is enlightenment, from the perspective of proto-Buddhism. What if enlightenment was simply mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? That can sound daunting if we don't know what mastery is, so let's review the definition. Mastery is simply getting good at anything, so good that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Once again, let us not be daunted by mastery. We've been mastering tasks since childhood. As we children, we learn to master the art of using the commode, brushing our teeth, tying our shoes, riding a bike, reading, writing, and arithmetic. In the second to the final passage of the Buddha's discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, he explained that one could master this path in as little as 7 days. How is that? How is that even possible? Because not only are the seventh and eighth folds of the path mindfulness and meditation, but more importantly, they serve as the dynamos that turn the wheels and gears of the metaphoric enlightenment machine. Simply by playing with mindfulness and meditation every 12 hours or so, we cannot help but master the path. For that to make more sense, let us review definitions. The seventh-fold right mindfulness is as follows. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we've evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the core of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with all that we have noticed? In a word, meditation. You see, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. Which function as the core of our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during each exhalation. Now, I mentioned previously that mindfulness and meditation act as a type of dynamo that make mastery of the remaining six folds effortless. By way of example, the more we authentically train in mindfulness and meditation, the more we cannot help but experience right view of impermanence, no self, and emptiness, also known as leaping over pride's obstructions to omniscience. How does that work? As we rest in our exhalation, whatever we watched during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, a simile is only as effective as it is relatable, so we have to ask the question, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although it could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? So whether we're dealing with no self or emptiness, both are just metaphors to describe the experience latent within each exhalation. I'm eternally grateful to both Prahe Vajra, also known as Gaurav Dorje, as well as the late Tulku Tanda, who explained that the highest love is the spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of Hatha Yoga or Treksho that is simply noticing and relaxing in harmony with our breathing. Hence, simply by training in mindfulness and meditation, we cannot help but practice greater kindness of intention, which also is the essence of the Bodhisattva vows according to Karma Chakme Rinpoche. It also constitutes leaping over jealousy's obstructions to omniscience. The more we play with mindfulness and meditation, the more impossible it becomes for us to not practice kind communication. You see, if we squander time and energy mucking about with active focus and active analysis, we will so fatigue the medial and dorsolateral prefrontal cortex that we trigger our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. and which is terrible. No one wants to be cranky, but we know we're practicing mindfulness and meditation correctly in cooperation with our spinal cord, but it makes us kinder. Not only kind with our communication, but also kind with our conduct. For nonviolence is the essence of the Pratimoksha vows, once again, according to Karma Chakme Rinpoche. Who was the singer from the 60s who's saying, I feel good? Something Brown? Oh, what was his name? His nickname was the King of Rock and Roll, or the hardest working man in rock and roll. Let's look that up real quick. James Brown. Oh, James Brown passed 20 years ago. Clearly, I'm out of touch. So, there we go. Simply by playing with mindfulness and meditation at least once every 12 hours, we cannot help but become kinder in our commerce. It's all well and good to talk about kindness, but how are we to know what the right thing to do is with our words or our deeds or our commerce? The more we play with mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds flow. Whoops, wrong button. Not from contrived concentration, not from wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity, which is known by many names, including right effort, or effortless effort, or doing without doing, or wu wei, or going with the flow, or being in the zone, or expedient means. Without further ado, let us play with mindfulness and meditation of clarity and letting go, which functions as a type of carrier wave supporting the liberation's peace. As we passively notice air entering our nostrils, let's actively, silently, and mentally recite the verb watch. As we passively notice air exiting our nostrils, let's actively, silently, and mentally recite the verb rest. Remember, the moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 13 minutes or so. Once again, the moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 13 minutes or so. If you have any questions about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, now is the ideal time to type your question in the chat window. We're going to shift gears to mindfulness and meditation of bliss and letting go, which acts as a kind of carrier wave of enlightenment's universal love. It's fairly easy. As we passively notice our chests swell with breath, we could actively and silently and mentally recite the verb feel. As we passively notice our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, we can actively, silently, and mentally recite the verb rest. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk lesson and group practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.